All right, we're live.
Well, good morning, everybody. The first Wednesday in October.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We are heading directly towards fall, the
Oh,
holidays,
yes.
colder weather,
Uh,
Yes.
feeling,
storms,
I'm feeling it already.
Yep. I done pulled out the sweatshirts.
right?
Hey, can I get one? Can I get one?
You absolutely can. You are good. For
Yeah,
sure you can.
we
Thank you.
definitely got to get those. It's that time of year. It's
Yeah.
perfect for the broadcast, it's perfect for everything.
Yep. We can show make that happen, guys.
Well, and we'll make sure that we definitely, once again, get you to promote your link so that people can come and get those for the holidays for this season.
Yes. Tis the season.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, how was our week, Renee? We'll start with you.
So
Good week?
guys, I'm gonna start on a very, very somber note. I have got to take a moment to send just some love and prayers to my dear friend, Michelle Snoop Dillard, who tragically lost her daughter day
Oh
before
God.
yesterday. Of course, very suddenly.
Mm,
Katura had just celebrated her 21st birthday. And this
no.
was her only child. So I have a dear friend that I don't even know how to console, but certainly want to make sure that our thoughts and prayers and positive energies are going towards Snoop Dillard. She co-owns a few spots with 2 Chainz here in the city, Escobar. She's just an amazing human being, an amazing business person, and this has certainly shaken her and her family to her core. So certainly, as we talk about mental health and just wellness, I know she's gonna have her road to recovery is gonna be never ending on this one.
Oh gosh. Yeah, my prayers with her, definitely
Yeah,
with her and her.
yeah. Thank you.
Well, Renee, you bring up a great point. We, even if it's probably harder when sudden, but when we know through a family member is going through something, we know we're closer towards their end, we prepare, and it's still hard. But one thing I want everybody to remember is that time frame when it first happens, we're all there. We support. Can we do something? We show love.
Mhm.
Then it's when things are supposed to be normal again.
Normal again.
That's when it's hard.
Yes. Yes.
So she's going to be getting ready towards the holidays now, Thanksgiving, and they're not here. Christmas.
Right.
So I'm encouraging everybody before we go any further. When it's that time where it's supposed to be normal, like we said, that's when to really ask, be there, look to them, and they may say, "I'm fine." Come back a
Yeah.
few days later. Can
Yeah.
I bring you something to eat? Something.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes to your point, Nate, you don't ask, you just do. Like I've already
Yeah.
planned, I know some of Snoop's favorite things. So I've already planned to have those put together and delivered to her home, like you said, after all the dust settles, after everybody goes back to their normal and they're like, okay, Snoop is, back. She's
Yep.
not gonna be back from this one. She lost her only child. So
Mm,
Oh, and that's something I've fortunately have never had to have, but I've had loved ones, families, friends, and it's the little things sometimes that bring that back. A song,
right,
whatever.
right. Yeah.
Sam, how was your week? We saw you kind of here last week, but didn't hear from you. But how's things going? Everything well? Good week?
I had a very, very extreme week managing BET. Um, the award show was the hip hop award show was just this past weekend in Atlanta. Of course, it aired last night. It just uh, dealing with management. It is definitely very, very tremendous. Making sure that that type of event on that level, on that stage, goes peacefully and as planned. So everything went good. I just got my voice back this morning. Projecting my voice all weekend. So definitely, I'm just happy to be back on the show and being able to talk and get people to be a part of this dialogue that we have for the show.
Absolutely. And as everybody's aware, last week or last month was Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. And we want to keep moving forward, not just on the cannabis end, which is always something important to talk about as we get closer to the elections and voting and more possible legalization throughout the states. But we still want to focus on the mental health. And this month, for example, is Antidepressant Awareness Month, which can roll right back in with the suicide awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, I think something we wanted to talk about. And one thing I noticed going through and prepping for this show is youth are actually diagnosed twice as likely with depression, as well as twice as likely to use cannabis among the teens that are depressed. It's actually increased more rapidly 15 years in the last 15 years or so, and estimates that 1 in 3 12th graders aged 17 to 18 used cannabis in the past year. 6% of those on a daily basis.
Yeah, I can see that. There's two things that's really going on with that trend in particular. Is one, the industry or the supposed culture is kind of encouraging it and making it more normal for that use. Children, especially teens, will emulate what other adults do. That's just bottom line. So I see that trend continuing to be even more and more upward as children in their younger selves feel like they're adults themselves. The exposure that the things that they are exposed to now are so many more times, hundreds of times more than what we're exposed to. The knowledge, just the sense of awareness and well-being, it's even more tremendous now in this day and time in 2022, and gonna even heighten even more in 2023. So yeah, I definitely see that.
Yeah, Sam, you're spot on with that. And hearing that it was within the last year, COVID is a factor. COVID, we are going to feel the impacts of COVID and the pandemic for at least the next 2 years, right? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
they said that's going to be a 10-year impact, right? And so mental health, mental wellness, those are the things we don't talk about. And I'm going to, hey, play the SM card, and that's social media. Social media, it has such an impact now. So kids can immediately see, oh, it's cool. This is what so-and-so does, and he's cool. Oh, so-and-so does this, and they're cool. And of course, I think the cool kids do. And so, you see Snoop Dogg, you see 2 Chainz, you see, even if you don't see them using it, you see them speaking positively about cannabis, right? And so many are getting into the business of cannabis, if you will. I know promoters and people who have owned clubs here. Felix Murray, who owned Mansion Elan, owns one of the biggest cannabis brands in the country, Gas House. Who doesn't know Gas House? That's Felix, right? And so when you think about, what the kids see and the people that they see doing good and doing the cool stuff and hanging out with the cool chicks, they use cannabis. Cannabis is cool.
Right. And one of the big things that was in that article, not once did it say smoke or inhalation, it just said cannabis. So right. Keep in mind, that could be gummies, that could be oils, that could be solubles, that could be a lot of things.
Right.
And something Sam and I were talking about too, that I think we need them, but we need to be careful on what we consume gummy wise. Myself, I ran out of what I had. I bought something at the recommendation of the store for a supplement, but I didn't realize I was going from 15 grams to 50.
Right.
Yeah. So, we as a consumer need to be careful too, because
definitely,
if we don't know what the side effects are or what the dosage is, and for example, what if I was going to get behind the wheel of the car? I was going to go do something instead of allot that time frame at the house. That would fall on me as a consumer because I didn't do my due diligence. But that's something that's just as important, whether it be these teens or adults.
Absolutely.
To add on to that, Nate, that discussion should definitely be out there even more, especially about the packaging, the responsibility of it. I am an advocate for regulation of the industry, so that way that we can still also remain responsible as well as adults, but be responsible for the children who also consume as well. So I can definitely say how important that is. That 50 milligram gummy can create different types of anxiety or panic. I can say from a past experience, taking a gummy that was double the dosage of what I normally take, like a 50, will give you various sensations. I've had sensations of like I can't breathe, which is that's an anxiety that I have within myself. So that sensation, you never know what that sensation is from one person to the next.
Absolutely. And we're going to get a little bit further into this. And that's one of the things we wanted to talk about was, when it comes to antidepressant and mental health, people a lot of times go to their doctors and they get prescribed medicines. But remember, some of these prescribed medicines could co-infect with the cannabis that you're using, could cause other symptoms, could cause other complications that we have to do our due diligence with, study it, ask doctors, and do what is going to work properly for both ends.
The biggest thing I can see in response to that, Nate, is that they do studies and they do research on people. But the one thing that I know just in general, from one person to the next, everybody's different. Mm-hmm. So you can't take a commonality with one person or this one group of people. There are so many different things within the body itself, whether your blood type, and there's several blood types. So what effect from one blood type to the next does consumption have? Even I think there's another difference, like skeletal muscle type is also a difference. Let's also talk about diet. That can also be a difference. Let's also talk about the environment itself. Everybody's in a different climate. So what about the climates that are more higher elevation opposed to a lower elevation? What about those climates? What about climates that are higher, not higher, but hotter, opposed to the climates that are colder? So you got to look at those, or the ones that's below sea level. I think that those are factors as well that has to be looked at to really effectively survey people and then use it for that area and that demographics. I don't think it should be generalized across one country when you look at all of those different factors.
Right. Body mass, our sexes, our race, all those different things. Perfect example, and then get Renee's take real quick. For example, females. During the time of ovulation, a female, actually, of course, we know her blood is thinner. So therefore, she, if drinking alcohol, will get intoxicated faster. So at the same point, that's got to happen when taking, cannabis, CBD, oils, anything. So that's something as a female you've got to keep in mind. Do I need to change my dosage now as I'm during this time frame? Because it could affect me differently.
Yeah,
that's a big factor. Yeah, I left those out. So yeah, you drove that right on home, Nate.
Well, it's one of those things that in the industry, working in bars, clubs, or whatnot, I always want to explain that to the servers, because you're not going to look, for the most part, at a female and go, "Oh, yep, it's that time, so I need to be more cautious."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that is so spot on.
Everyone should add their own level of education with it, the awareness of it. So being a part of this discussion will create the awareness that you need. And then, of course, we welcome any comments, and then we have anyone who has a level of expertise in the area. We definitely welcome you to come out to the show and be a part of the discussion as we try to make everyone more familiar with the content and create a well-known acceptance of the plant itself. The plant has medicinal benefits that I definitely continue to advocate for. It does create a level of wellness. And we're talking about this area of dealing with stress and anxiety. Man, I tell you, I can't tell you how much from one day to the next, how much we may put on ourselves a lot. I can tell you this, as I struggle with posting on social media, I realize that there is a helpful notion that comes from being on social media. You can truly be here to try to help, and that's what we're here for today. But the social media itself can also bring another level of stress, and I can't emphasize the moderation of how much you put into your social media. You put too much in your social media, you can create an undue stress on yourself as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's our digital version of keeping up with the Joneses, right? How many likes are you getting? How many impressions? And it's a unhealthy level of competition for some, right? Influencers, that is their
Right.
job. How do they appear, and how do I get the most traction here? To me versus whoever else is doing something in the same space that I do. And as we talk about youth and adolescent use and misuse, that's part of it too. Those are pressures that we'll never be able to understand. I cannot imagine somebody being able to record the crazy crap that I did in high school and post it to somewhere where it would live forever.
I'm glad it wasn't there.
Man, like, oh my goodness. So yeah, this generation, this era of youth and adolescent are dealing with. I don't think they realize just how strong they are, because we might not have had some of the modernization, if you will, and some of the easy ways, the microwaves and things like that. But boy, the things that came with those growing pains, I don't know that that it's a trade-off.
Well, to your point, the influencers, these people see that and go, that's a way that I can make money. I can not have to work a 9-to-5. I can this, I can that. So they put the pressure on themselves to continue to post, to continue to raise the level. And we're not all going to be those people. It is the rare ones. It is the few and far between. It's not for everybody. So great example of what you're saying, Renee. And a couple of numbers here for you. 8th and 10th graders, they're now saying daily use has increased since 2018 by 1.3% of all 8th graders and 4.8% of 10th graders.
So what ages are those guys? Is that 14, 13, 14 to 16?
It's going to be your 13 to 16-year-olds, roughly, on average.
Wow.
And that's daily use numbers. What about the here and there's, once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month? I don't even have those numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think just to add into that number, Nate, there are a couple of factors you got to look at. As children look for more social acceptance, I think that they do those things as a part of social acceptance that can get them put in a very, very precarious position, because they're doing something to fit in or to be cool with other people, but don't realize what damage or effects it can actually have on their body. The other thing is the possession of it. And the possession of it at school can definitely put you in a very compromised position. It can cause you to get expelled from school, and you may not get back into that school. So factors that these teenagers have to go and take in account for, and their parents have to be a little bit more responsible than what they are. You can't assume that my child is a great child and they're into these things. The exposure of what they're exposed to when they're not in your presence, they're exposed to 1,000 more things than you can imagine. So parents, you definitely need to take the time to think about having that discussion, educate yourself on that plant and what's going on with that plant, and reasonably be able to tell your child what happens during consumption, with possession, and so forth. You also want to monitor the parties that they go to and what type of exposure, from one parent to the next. I can't say that, you got some parents that have, no restrictions on their child, no boundaries. So their parents may openly use and consume the plant as well. So imagine that child with that exposure, and then now your child who has limited exposure is totally exposed to that child, and maybe that parent system that's in place, it can corrupt your child. So you definitely have to be selective of the people that you expose your child to under those circumstances. These are mitigating circumstances that can go along with that.
And I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective, because my father would probably kill me. I hope he's not watching today. But my father openly used. But it was different, because we were also raised to know that there were adult activities. There were things that adults did. You know, I never snuck and took drinks. I never snuck into his stash. You know what I mean? I knew that. And it's funny because for me, that shoebox in the bottom of his closet was a sign of success, because my father was a very successful businessman in corporate America. And I just knew he had a shoebox, you know, and that he got to go in that shoebox. And for me, that shoebox was something that he earned, right? Or the access to. And that's how I felt about liquor too. You know, I might take a sip of wine with him, or, you know, with my mom or whatever. But as far as thinking about using it, and one of the things that he always told us, whatever you're going to try, you try it in the house. Because if anything goes wrong with you, your knucklehead friends are going to run. They're going to be scared and they're going to leave you there. Whatever you do, try it in the house. So I didn't even think about it until, like, you know, I tell people I'm a late bloomer. I started really using cannabis at 40. And even then I think I maintained a healthy relationship with alcohol, those types of things, because it was never treated as a totally taboo thing. It was like, there's ages to this, right? And you had respect for it being an adult thing. So, you know, and totally can see, you know, the wrong knucklehead, the person that's sitting there getting high with their 12-year-old. Yeah, you don't want your kids around them. But for my dad, we knew the best way to get a beating is to bring somebody else's kid into what he allowed us to do. I can't speak for that other child. Right. They can't be in this space. This is a family thing. You know, what happens at home stays at home. Yeah, he drilled that one in us. So.
That's a great point, Renee. And I definitely appreciate your father taking that approach in that. I mean, I feel that you're a phenomenal person and that you're very, very well-rounded. So, I mean, I think just from one person to the next, as we try to create this level of normalcy in everyone, it varies from one person to the next. It varies from one household to the next. And we just don't want, we from an informative standpoint, we don't want a child to find themselves in adverse circumstances, because it's still a Schedule I drug. They're still not supposed to really truly have it. And then their small, fragile bodies may not be developed enough from one child to the next to actually and deal with the effects of that plant as well. The plant is very, very powerful.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, to your point too, first you were saying, you know, be involved with the kids, know what they're doing. But remember, we now have these that even though you're with them, sometimes you don't know what they're doing. They could still be looking up online and talking about it. And to both of your point, if you're not discussing it with them, and for example, and this is a parent's choice, if you're not involved in allowing, like Renee said, to happen at your home, there's a chance it's going to happen somewhere else. So at least educate and talk to them about it, because they may go behind your back, and then go behind the back. You don't know what area, what influence, what environment they're around that could happen. So now something else I wanted to mention was they said 13.2% of American adults have used antidepressant medicines in the past 30 days.
You said 13.2%?
13.2% of adults have used a form of antidepressants in the past 30 days. 13.2% of American adults.
Wow. I can look at that as we're dealing with post-gas prices going down. An impending recession itself, you know, higher interest rates as well. And then even with opportunities becoming more limited, as we enter the age of automation where the robots are taking people's jobs, I would be a little depressed too. So,
well, I hate to say it, but gas prices are getting ready to go up.
Right.
Absolutely.
Hit hard.
The hurricanes, as they keep coming, yes, it's going to
removal of barrels in reserve and everything else that's happened in the last couple of days. Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah. Chain supply is going to have a problem, especially in impacted areas where there's a lot of storm damage. Definitely the prices of getting that stuff to those areas is going to go up. In certain areas where from a travel standpoint, a lot of things travel via trucks. And those trucks, if they can't get through to a particular area, guess what? The supply goes up, the demand goes up as well, which means the cost goes up. So that's the old law of supply and demand. So we definitely have to be aware of that and how that works, and a level of preparedness is important. I would say to all of the pickup drivers, if you can put a 100-gallon gas tank in the back of your truck, that might keep you going just a little bit longer. Especially if you're in those along the Gulf Coast, the Panhandle of Florida, the Eastern Seaboard, all the way up to Virginia, where you may have storm damage in the Carolinas, North, South Carolina, Virginia. You just have to be prepared. It's the same way if you own a home on the coastline, you got to have a certain insurance in place to protect your home. If you don't have it, you're going to lose everything. So, preparedness is the new term that I would like to talk about. We have to be prepared. We have to be educated. We have to know the information that's being given to us, the truths, the facts, and the fictions that come along with the words that are given on a daily basis. So we have to continue to educate ourselves. You can listen to me, or you can choose not to listen to me. And the point is that I may be speaking fact, or I may be speaking fiction. I definitely want to stay on the side of fact, because I don't want to mislead anyone. I think that that's what we're here for, is to give everybody gainful insight on information, and also have a conversation.
Absolutely. And that 13.2% that we mentioned, with them using medication, that makes that the most frequently used therapeutic medications in the nation. So we're ingesting more antidepressant medicine than any other form of therapeutic medicine in the nation. That's where we stand right now with that 13.2%.
And I think that, when you think about, we laugh about it, but the way that they push pharmaceuticals on us, that pharmaceuticals are the end all be all, whatever you're experiencing, here, take this. Now don't worry about the priapism or your left eye leaking, or, all of the it's almost like the warnings and the side effects are more prevalent than how you sell us on it. But that's all you see. All you see is commercials, and it's some made up name. It's like, okay, now what is this one and what does it do? You see that more than you see clothes. It used to be, me and my mom used to laugh about how much they had commercials about feminine products, but I can't think of anything else that we see the commercials more consistently across so many different channels. Whether you're watching sports, the soap opera, The View, whoever you're watching, you're going to get some pharma commercials.
I mean, they're even on the kids' cartoon channels at certain times now.
Right, exactly.
And to your point, you sit there and they speak real fast when it comes to, if you have a problem with vision, use this. Oh, by the way, it may cause this. Wait, what? So when we have a list of what the side effects might be, but this is what it helps, is it
right?
And that's something where, when we think about the power of the plant, as these individual entrepreneurs take those steps to challenging the government itself, still be smart, still be responsible with the labeling and the packaging. I can't emphasize that enough. So that way that we can safely administer this product out into the marketplace is the most important thing, is being responsible. Nate, just in the discussion that I had with you earlier about packaging and using the terms gummies and so forth, there's still a responsibility that comes along with it. I still think that is a form of child terminology, or children use gummies. Of course, adults use gummies, but the thing about it is that we definitely have to separate it and change the name in the marketplace just to be more responsible.
Absolutely. We got vitamin gummies, we've got health suppressant gummies, we've got different kind of health benefit gummies, and you're telling me that these kids are going to sit here and know the difference if we as an adult are not, like we said, protecting and also keeping them out of their reach. The gummies look fun sometimes. The packaging looks interesting.
Definitely should add adult to it then. It
Yes.
should be
Yeah.
adult gummies then, if that's the place that, that's the case. It's just I just feel that there needs to be more of a level of responsibility for regulation and packaging for it. That way, for any reason, if a child stumble across a gummy, it says adult gummies, you know, reading and comprehension, they started that at elementary. They
Right.
know what adult
Right.
means. You're a child, not an
Yep.
adult. This
And
isn't.
and you see the packaging now. The packaging is cartoonish. The
Right.
packaging are knockoffs of popular kids products.
Yeah.
Candies, the Sour Patch Kids, that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge one floating around.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some Cheetos that are
Yes.
infused, and so all of those things. So it's cute and it's catchy, but it's dangerous.
Yeah,
Well,
and the word infused, from vocabulary standpoint, the kids are I think that what they're doing is testing the taboos. So I
Mm-hmm.
think infused is a strict enough word to convey the message to them.
Right.
well, and I was going to show you this, not showing what it is, but this was my 15 milligram. Very simple to take off, twist, done. The bright side is that 50 milligram one does actually have a lock top on it where you have to push and turn, and it can take some effort to get it off. So that's a plus that they are protecting that packaging. But again, if a child knows how to get into a child-proof top, they may not stop and read the rest of the packaging. They just pop that top.
No, absolutely. And this goes with the vapes in the store.
Mm-hmm.
A child has to be over a certain age to get access to a vape. All you need is an 18, 19, or 20-year-old person to go inside and pick up a vape for you. Um, for whatever reason, the child gets the access of going to a store, walking
Mm-hmm.
to a store, and saying, "Hey, can you buy this for me?" That adult should definitely be more responsible. We have to figure out ways to protect our children, and definitely lead by example. So we do have to, in this day and age, I think the tougher conversations, kind of like how Renee's father told them, what goes on in the home stays in the home. That's a direct conversation that parents should have with children nowadays as the exposure increases. The culture itself, whether in movie or TV, music video, it's being put out there. And
Yes.
I can tell you, if these people are looked at, these different celebrities are looked at as role models, then trust me, these kids are gonna accept what these people are doing and look to do what people are doing, if not emulate what they're doing. So we definitely got to get on the ball.
Oh, absolutely, we do. And for example, the SSRIs, if you guys have heard of that, that's actually the selective serotonin rebuke inhibitor that actually is what causes these differences in the brain. And the FDA has approved a cannabis-derived drug and 3 FDA-approved synthetic cannabis-related drugs. And these are treatments for anxiety, for depression, but those SSRIs can cause different things to happen in how it works. Because you've got to remember, this basically is a selective serotonin inhibitor. The serotonin is the level of the brain that these antidepressants are supposed to help to balance, to give levels to help balance you out and fix it. So you've got to be careful, like we were saying, in what you're using together, because are you going to counteract it, or are you going to make it non-effective now?
Right.
Well, Nate, I think just to add on to that, when you look for balance, I think we all have to take things in a level of order. We got to get proper sleep. We got to get proper. We have to fuel ourselves, so we have to have a balanced nutrition. At the same time, some leisurely activities definitely can create a normalcy that we all need.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't get either one of those things, it can throw off balance, which will require you to go to a medication to put it into balance. And I don't. There's my thing with big pharma is that the number of side effects that they've discovered should tell you that they should not be putting these things out to the marketplace like that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And remember, the cannabidiol or the CBD and can increase the levels of the SSRI in your bloodstream because the CBD will actually block the body from clearing the antidepressant as quick as normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Definitely, without questioning, will relax and calm you. I can say that that I have consumed safely, and I've been in a relaxed state. Even when I've had some mild aches and pains, it has helped relieve those pains as well.
you know, and it's one of those too now this is a very rare thing, but we have to be careful, like we were saying, because increasing those levels of serotonin in your body with the SSRI can actually cause a fatal condition called serotonin syndrome. Now, I don't know how common it is and how severe those things can be, but again, these are these things that we need to educate and learn because we don't want to elevate that. By example, maybe we take the milligrams too high when we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Do you think the person at the store knows this? No.
Well, I think that we've all been in a point where we needed relief right now.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we've doubled down on the dosage, whether we've doubled down on certain over-the-counter pills, maybe Tylenol for pain. But you got to also understand when people feel these certain sensations within their body, they need relief right now. So they may double down on the dosage. So these are things that are happening to people everywhere. And we have to definitely sympathize with them as they need help and treatment to get past the moment that they're going through. So,
well, absolutely. And tricycline antidepressants mixed with CBD, for example, can actually cause your blood pressure to go higher, give you dry mouth as well as constipation. So they were talking about the side effects, but the CBD can actually increase the level of the TCA in your body. And by doing such, then if you mix the antidepressants, you can cause those other effects. But again, this is not everybody across the board. And this is why it's important when you're going into your CBD store, whatever your health supply is, explain to them everything that you're on and what you're taking so that they can help give you what's proper and not just, here you go.
That's true. Definitely true.
Like they ask, does cannabis affect antidepressant medicines? In some cases, yes. But however, no research has been linked yet to show this is exactly what happened. This is the cause. This is the effect. It's different for every single person, depending on multiple health factors, as well as what you're saying. Do you exercise regularly? Do you drink enough fluids? Do you do this? Do you mix with alcohol, which is antidepressant? All of that could happen.
Well, Nate, just my 2 cents on the matter. The federal government, with the 36 different agencies that deals with regulation of this product, should do the research and they inform the public. And they have unlimited funding that comes from the public. And I think they should change their stance and viewpoint on how they protect the public. If they do truly want to help, they have to be informative and they have to help with conducting the research.
No, absolutely. Because there's a lot of reports showing that you can get immediate relief of depression and depression symptoms from cannabis. That's a plus right there. A natural plant that could help with all of this. Both the THC and CBD can increase the serotonin in your brain, which could help release these effects, these thoughts, these anxieties. All of that's there is great because it helps with headache, nausea, insomnia, your GI being upset. My dad, for example, has had a lot of GI issues lately. These are all things that all of this could help with. And we need to do that research to figure out how we can help more people instead of keeping them with prescriptions and medications.
Well, Nate, just to add into the public court of opinion, Big Pharma don't bought that response that we've been getting. They bought it. And the government is all about taxation, and pharmaceuticals are taxed heavily. Those are billion-dollar companies that the government is definitely getting their 2 cents off of. Actually, they're getting more than 2 cents off of it. They're getting $2 off of every dollar. So they're getting more than their cut off of it. I just feel that even still, when you talk about in the age of technology that we're in, and we're now being exposed to this plant even more, knowing that there is power and medicinal benefits in the plant, that the government, from a responsible standpoint, should definitely help and assist with the research. I mean, there's no way that, in this discussion right here, I'm hoping that someone is listening and can take this to the next department and say, hey, you know what, he's right. So they listen, they monitor, they look at these things. And then, like I say, the public has a right to know. You're taxing us. Help us. Do more for us.
Absolutely.
Sending aid and sending $10 billion to another country. Our country is still at war within itself.
Mm-hmm.
We need to give a level of normalcy and to continue to educate our people to be better, to be well.
Well, and another step to that, this is a natural plant. This grows naturally. So speaking from that end, you're telling me that if we find a way to use all of the medicinal benefits from this plant, that's not going to be cheaper to produce, cheaper to access to people, and cheaper to help these individuals, so that the profits could technically be higher than these pills that we are making chemically ourselves?
Well, it's like the game Monopoly. Big Pharma is a monopoly. People who is in that game got big pockets.
Mm-hmm.
They live in the same neighborhoods as these different Senate reps and senators and representatives that we have in local government. And whether they go to the HOA meeting or they're in that common circle, whether it's a country club, they're there to have those discussions. If not, those private galas where it's $5,000 a plate, guess what? I'm not paying $5,000 a plate.
Right.
So I'm not at that gala.
Right.
But that who is a part of that multi-billion-dollar company, they have the access, and they'll continue to lobby, and they'll have carte blanche access to these politicians.
Well, a great thing to your point, Sam, let's be honest and not go into a lot of different examples. Just because the politicians are saying A, you don't think that they're not doing B. They may be keeping these regulations down, but I guarantee a lot of them are using cannabis in one way, shape, or form, even though they're saying we're not going to decrim it.
If they're not, their kids are.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think overall, just in the overall discussion, mental health is definitely going to be the topic of everybody's discussion, whether you're going to bed with it or whether you're waking up to it. We have battles that we have to deal with every day, and just this social media, we talked about it before. Social media puts so much stress and burden on people for social acceptance, trying to be accepted by somebody you don't even know. Whether I got 3 viewers or 3,000 viewers, it's not going to change how I feel about myself. I still feel the same person, the same responsible person, the same with the same friends and the same support circle. That's what you should have. You should be standing on your own 2 feet, whether you have 1 or 2 or not. You should be comfortable with who you are in this world. That's the most important thing, so that we can have that balance, and then you can do the things that enhance your life. We all do things to enhance our life, whether we go for a walk, we go hiking, we ride our bikes, walk our dogs. We have our retreats that we use daily. And like I said, when you have recreational opportunities, that's part of the leisure that we have in life. Some can afford it, some can't.
So guys, the reason my head has been down is because when Sam mentioned taxation or taxes, there is right now, I think there are about 6 dispensaries, manufacturers, producers of cannabis at different levels that right now, if they paid their taxes, they would go out of business and would not be able to recover. They owe, taxes with a comma in them, millions of dollars. And so even that, it's still that control thing, right? How could their taxes be so high that they would be taken out of business? I mean, So when we talk about, the big pharma and the government all being in cahoots, um, all kind of working together to make it as hard as possible to enter the industry and to be able to maintain and thrive in the industry. That there's also that at play too. And, we would love to think that this is just about the health and wellness of the, residents, of the citizens of the United States. But if that was the case, those things that make us well or that can keep us well would not be so far out of reach, would not be priced out. We would not have 99-cent cheeseburgers and it costs $3.99 to buy a nice broccoli floret. It's just what we would not see that. So unfortunately, America in general is about, we're about that dollar.
No, absolutely. And what they'll do is they'll continue to penalize the cannabis industry until when it's running rampant. It's like having a nice lawn and you don't treat it. Those weeds are gonna grow. They'll kill the grass.
Yes.
So basically, once the industry itself just becomes so rampant because you can't tame it, you can't hold it back. I want to say this here, Renee, just in the response to jumping those hoops. We have a former commander in chief who jumps through so many hoops on a regular basis, from bankrupting one company to filing for bankruptcy on another company, and still rerouting money and resources and so forth. For everybody that's listening, at the end of the day, it's legal. Bankruptcy is legal. So
Right.
You should use the loopholes according to law to your advantage.
And so I found the article. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. 10 companies, and I'll forward to you guys on IG. But the headline is 10 multi-state cannabis companies owe $500 million in federal taxes.
Yeah.
$500 million. They can't recover from that, right?
That's
This chart was updated as of September 27th. There was some data error, but only 2 of the companies hold the bulk of the tax debt. It's $286 million. But if they would Verano would be financially underwater in a big way. They owe 161.4 and they only have 92 on hand. Do the math, right? And you've got 10 companies that owe nearly $500 million in taxes.
Yeah. Now they definitely without question are in a dilemma. But the most important thing about that is that article was being written and published by someone who is creating light to that matter. They still can survive that circumstance. They, of course, if they're a multi-billion-dollar company, they should have a good lawyer and they should have a good tax accountant. Just bottom line. There are ways around it. People will hold you responsible for what you do and what you don't do. Well, guess what? If you do it the right way, the legal way that's according to law, then are you wrong?
Right.
So there is a way around it. But
right.
It's just a matter of so long cannabis, marijuana, weed has been considered a taboo to be spoken, smoked, or in possession. A lot of people went to jail and prison, which we have a current commander in chief who sent hundreds of thousands of people to prison for a prolonged period of time for something that is not as detrimental as any opiate or narcotic.
Right.
But hey, the powers that be, they choose to do what they do. You challenge them, they will punish you. So, for everybody that's listening, I'm not saying to go out here and be a rebel, be against the government. But what we have to do is we still have to educate and inform. And I think it's just as important to make everybody aware. Awareness, you can do so much more when you're aware. When you are in fear, you're restricted. You're limited on what you can do, what you can say when you're in fear. But when you're aware, you can on the matter. So for anybody else that can back up what I'm saying or can educate me even further, I welcome you. come talk to me.
Well, and here's a point, for example, on the other side of that, Sam. I worked for a medical company a few years back. And when Obamacare came out, which it helped a lot of people, and it did, and a lot of these bills will help some and hurt others. The company I was working for, they were a supply company. They did stuff for disposable medical equipment in the ERs. Now, all of a sudden, through that bill, his whole company was reclassified. They were no longer supply. They were now devices. And under devices, their whole tax bracket changed. This guy went from, I don't know exact numbers, but roughly probably owing $700,000-800,000, maybe just over $1 million. Now his taxes that year almost went up to $4 to $5 million a year. And he's looking at us going, well, how can I get out of this? And we looked at the paperwork and said, you've got two choices: pay your tax, sell your company. And that could happen to a lot of these businesses. They could change what they're classifying of the tax in these areas that are trying to sell cannabis if they're not staying on top of how am I being representative? How am I being taxed? How is this bill affecting me? You've got to do that research.
Absolutely. And you hit it right on the head, Nate. And what I would say to that owner is, I'm not buying it.
Right.
If you're $8 million in debt, definitely not buying it. But what I can do is I can buy business from you and start over and reclassify it and keep it in that realms to where it's reasonable for me. A lot of these situations that we go into, a lot of people will have this dream, aspiration, or this idea, and please do your research and due diligence. I was getting ready to get a building, and before I got the building, I say, and I made the mistake one time in the past, getting a building to house a business without checking the local restrictions on business. And you got to find out because the person who owns that building, whether they lease it to you or sell it to you, and you got this bright idea, well, if you don't go talk to the city or the county, guess what? They will make you pay for it. And you're going to pay for a building that you cannot use, that you cannot operate, and you're going to go through a harsh consequence of legally trying to get out of that lease agreement or that contract that you signed on that building. So that's the same thing I got to say about
ignorance is not a defense, right?
Right.
There you go. There you go.
What do you think that owner's going to say to you? You didn't do your research?
Ignorance is not a defense.
Hey, he's going to say that's not
this. Yeah.
That's not my problem. That's what he's going to say.
Absolutely.
So I think the biggest thing as we navigate the industry and what needs to happen now, let's continue to join forces. I feel strength in numbers will get us to where we want to be at, where we want to go to. So for all of the people that's listening, please, we ain't not the win all tell all when it comes to this. We need more forces to help us. We want to just be our part in the fight, so that way that we can get the message out and do everything that we can do to help people. There are a plethora of jobs and opportunities that comes with this area as well, that we want to be able to industrialize right here in the United States more than anything else. A lot of things are being imported from China without question. And at the end of the day, I don't want to hate on China, but man, we can do that right here.
Right.
There are jobs and opportunities that can be cultivated right here. So we want to still make that push and do everything that we need to right here. So for our government that makes it easier for China to be this $1 trillion country, hey, you may look at deregulating some things and changing the classification. Take cannabis off of the Schedule I drug list. That's just the first start. We can do that. We can definitely make some changes by volumes by doing that.
Well, we can, just like we talked a few months ago, honestly, where just because they're looking at making it legal doesn't mean that it's completely legal across the board. You still have regulations, you still have penalties, you still have things that could incarcerate you. And like you said, ignorance is not the answer.
No.
Yeah, as you know, here in the state, in Atlanta, city of Atlanta, we just celebrated, and I'm definitely throwing up the air quotes on that one. We just celebrated on Sunday, Decrim Day. So it has been five years since cannabis was decriminalized in Georgia or in Atlanta. I apologize. And everybody wants to say, "Oh, so it's legal now." Stop it. If it was legal, they would say it was legal. Please pay attention to the terminology. Decrim means that they can't lock you up for that charge. Doesn't mean they can't stop you. Doesn't mean they don't have probable cause for whatever else. And that's not just a gateway for them to be able to find what else. And if you have a warrant, you're going to jail if you get stopped for that. So that $75 ticket is not a get out of jail free card.
But your blinker being out, your tag light being out, those are all probable cause stops that now they can look at something else. Yep. Have you been drinking? Do you have something in your vehicle? Do you have this? Do you have that?
Yep.
So you need to also know your rights. Don't step out of that vehicle. Now you've given them free search. Just because they say, sir, step out of that vehicle, you don't have to do that.
Absolutely.
You have to know your rights, but you also have to have a level of awareness with it.
Correct.
A few years ago on YouTube, you had a lot of people putting out that same information that you're saying, but the apparent knowledge that it requires to be in that situation, to know that you don't have to do that, the people don't really have that information, and there is a gap that they have to jump, and a lot of them fall because when they jump it, that gap was a little bit too wide. They didn't get enough of a running start at it, or they didn't bridge the gap as they should before they jumped. They fell hard. So for everyone that find themselves in that circumstance, sometimes listening a little bit more, knowing a little bit more, educating yourself a little bit more will allow you to go a little bit more.
Well, and also, and we love what our police officers do. Don't get me wrong. They help us. We respect them. But like you said, know your rights. Know where you stand. Like an instance we had years ago, their job is to enforce, not interpret it. They're not supposed to interpret the law. They do that, they're in violation. Understand your rights.
We find ourselves in a bad circumstance, and we went through a time now from a social media standpoint where everybody wanted to put the police on video. They pulled their phones out, and and what it did was it definitely antagonized a lot of officers. It also intensified the situations because some officers did have something to hide. So you want to be able to protect your rights, but you want to have a great awareness with that comes along with that when you do that. Because when you find yourself in that situation, it may go all the way wrong just because you're trying to save yourself and see another day. But it can also go terribly wrong. I definitely hope to get officers who are wrongfully approaching the situations and trying to not necessarily incarcerate people, but literally harm people in their job every day. Because there's a responsibility to the job. You take an oath. You're sworn to take an oath to protect the public trust. Trust is the key word. But when you can't trust those officers, they got to be gone. We don't need them in office. I don't want to be in a situation where we're talking about whether we're for police officers or not. I believe that society itself needs to have a level of safety, and police officers, their job can provide that. Yeah. But at the same time, the education of the police should definitely be increased. Their training should definitely be increased. I feel that their pay should definitely be increased. And it's just because that job, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I don't feel that you can pay enough to do it. Now, if I was paid enough to do it, would I do it? Maybe. But at the same time, I feel it does require another level of education, a social, economic standpoint education, a psychological standpoint in education. It should definitely be more than just crude force and tactics, period.
Well, I agree. And to take that to the next step, as we've had this discussion before, I agree with the same thing when it comes to guns. We should have more training. We should have more regulations. We should have people showing they understand how to use them, what's involved with, but that's a regulation. That's not a banning type thing. And we need to do the same thing. The police need to go through all this training. They go through a lot. But we as normal civilians, if we went through their training, I'm not so sure that we would come through with the same fine colors they would. That hard situations.
I think the situation is how we look at it, as we talked about the different in your conversation, the body mass, the race.
Mm-hmm.
Those are factors, and I think that all of the factors should be evaluated. I think that there should be an assessment on everyone, and that to get the correct statistical information to administer products or put people in different positions. Like I said, we all are uniquely different. And I definitely feel that we all should have. There's a common test that we all have in for all of us, but from our race, background, age, exposure, the environments that we're in, those are factors that need to be inputted into the final determination. That's the only way to protect all of us, because you can say that the laws were wrote for all men and all women, but the one thing I know is a fact when it comes to the law, it was wrote by a man, which means that an exception was created
Mm-hmm.
for a man. So with that being said,
Well, like I say, there's an exception to every rule.
Absolutely.
And our laws were written with exceptions.
Absolutely. So that's why you have the right to remain silent. Get your attorney to handle anything that you need to say in the court of law. That's how it should be. And as we continue this fight, we definitely need to work on our legal representation and get someone who can actually come in and talk about the laws, the structure of the laws itself, and the process of things going into law. So we definitely need to work on that. We definitely want to start working on our fight and going down to the Capitol and getting the correct representation, so that way that we can get this industry where it needs to be at. So for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of thoughts real quick on what we were discussing there a moment ago. THC, for example, too high a dose, too much of it can cause anxiety or even a panic attack. So that's supposed to help us, but it can go too far.
You're right. The dosing is very, very important. And the packaging and the regulation that comes with the packaging is definitely very, very important. I think that if we create a level of normalcy, we don't have to tax that industry so hard, so much that it can't operate. It's almost like you're trying to put them out of business. But you have to definitely stand strong in what you believe and what you feel, but you have to get the applicable help that you need to survive, to have a solid foundation to stand on. You definitely have to get people to join into the fight.
Right, because on the other side of that, the anxiety or depression that a lot of people have, the CBD will help with.
Absolutely.
So, you got to be careful with your THC, your CBD, everything else. They all go hand in hand, even though they could be considered a derivative of the same idea. Each one's going to affect differently.
Yeah, I definitely feel that the from a dosing standpoint, the 15, 20 milligrams in one day is definitely more than enough. I definitely feel that, and me and Renee had a very, very deep discussion about the anatomy of the body and how it works, with the tolerance that the body will build toward regular consumption of anything that you consume, especially if it's a medicine that has an altering effect on the body itself. As you take it on a daily basis, you're going to end up having to increase the dosage.
Right.
So we all know that. We all are aware of that. We don't want to. I think that the body should go through a detox itself, so that way it can reset itself. And I think that the other things that go along with it is being mindful of that. That's the best way to keep our body the best that it can be for us and for the long term.
Absolutely agree with that. Well, so I guess that means that we've had a lot to go today, did a lot of different things, but we're at that time again.
Hey.
Yes, it is.
What we'll do is we'll have a couple of closing thoughts, where they can reach out. Renee, where they can get those shirts.
Yeah.
So they can give them out for Christmas presents, Thanksgiving gifts, maybe hand them out trick-or-treaters.
That part, all of that, right? No, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So I think, we've got to do a word for the day. And Sam, you said something that started with an R, and I said I was going to remember it. Was it resilience? Was it towards the beginning of our conversation? We were talking. And so if it wasn't resilience, that's what it's going to be. It is going to be resilience.
All right.
And so where can you get us? You can get us at cannabodydesigns.com. You can buy directly from our Instagram on at canna_body_designs. We put things on hold with some of our retail places because we got to get some business in order to make sure we don't have to put hits out on anybody if they try to duplicate our merch. And so we're dotting some I's and crossing our T's. So our legal counsel has asked us to pull back on some of our retail establishments, but we still get to keep pushing it forward because we can at least track the sales and tell where it came from and all that good stuff. So that's kind of the legalese. But yeah, we want to continue the conversation. Canna Body Designs was created to encourage mainstream conversations, hashtag Canna Conversations. We have got to get comfortable about talking about this plant, the health and wellness benefits, the socioeconomic impact, and of course, as we talked about a lot today, the revenue opportunities and doing things the right way. So I appreciate you guys for always letting me chime in.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sam, your closing thoughts, where they can find you, follow you, connect, all of it.
You can follow me at Big Boy Sam on IG, Big Boy Sam with 2 M's. Follow the Mouch Foundation as well. Definitely, I welcome everyone to join us every Wednesday. If you want to have a discussion, you definitely can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm going to reach out to the community as well to get support in this industry as we continue to put this platform out there just from an informative standpoint to help build the industry, the knowledge and awareness to come with it so that we can get the support that we need to stand strong with this industry. So definitely follow, connect, and definitely look to connect with you soon.
Great show. Appreciate everybody being here. Again, we're going to have these on multiple platforms. We'll be doing this again next week with more news on cannabis and mental health. You can always connect with us. For example, Matcha Foundation. We put news stories up on Twitter and our Facebook page multiple times a day. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram at DJNQ75. May everybody have a blessed week. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Peace.